good hot day in England, and obviously it's not going to be as hot as the Middle East, which is warm enough for many of you to enjoy the garden outside or the park. And I hope, inshallah, that you're back now behind your laptop or mobile phone or TV to join me in this session of the meaning of the Quran, Tafsir al-Quran, which we stopped during Ramadan, and we stopped because of the lockdown doing it in the mosque. So it's going to be a bit difficult for me to have no audience to interact with. And I hope that you can write either on the Facebook, send me messages or comment or something, or you could also write on YouTube, which I will probably, inshallah, be able to read and communicate, inshallah, with you. So we started in the mosque before we closed down, because of the lockdown. We started Suratul Hujuraat, and in Suratul Hujuraat we said the reason Allah sent Suratul Hujuraat down is that the Muslims were trying to put their own opinion ahead of the opinion of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, especially when he agreed to sign Hudaybiyah Treaty, giving a lot of concessions to the Qurayshis, who were not Muslims at that time, in exchange for 10 years of peace, which shows how much Muslims value peace and how much Islam spread in the time of peace, other than what people think that Islam spread by force. Islam is by choice, and people have to think about Allah Azza wa Jal, about the creation, about the favors of Allah Azza wa Jal on them, about all the help and the gifts Allah gave all of us, and value the gifts from Allah Azza wa Jal, and thank Him for being generous, being the founder, being the sustainer and the cherisher, and be happy to take His advice on how to live life safely on earth and how to prepare for going back home, which is Jannah, where their father and mother were created, Adam and Eve. And inshallah, all of us will be going back there sooner or later, once Allah Azza wa Jal decide that our time is up. So Allah Azza wa Jal said in the first verse of Surah Al-Hujuraat, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله إن الله سميع عليم. O you who believe. So always Allah Azza wa Jal addresses the believers, O you who believe, to show that the unbelievers probably not going to follow anyway. So Allah Azza wa Jal wouldn't go and say Ya ayyuhan nas, unless it is a general advice and general invite. Ya ayyuhan nas ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum walladhina min qablikum. So Allah addressing all mankind to be mindful of Allah Azza wa Jal, the creator, the one who created you and the one who created the people before you. But when it is to practice a worship or to conduct yourself correctly, Allah expects from the believers to do that, and He addresses them. And do not put yourself ahead of Allah and His Messenger. The Messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah Azza wa Jal said in Surah Al-Najm, وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't talk out of his own desires, his own opinions. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to consult, he will consult and he will ask, أَشِيرُ عَلَيَّ أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ. So guide me, O you people, tell me your opinion. And that happened when he wanted to go to Al-Ayr or Nafir to hunt for the caravan, or to fight the Qurayshis who are coming out of Mecca to fight the Muslims, the war Badr. Also, he asked them to advise when it was the war of Al-Khandaq and the war of Uhud and many other wars. The Prophet ﷺ consulted people, and a lot of issues the Prophet ﷺ used to consult people. But when he doesn't, and he say we have to do it this way, it means that he has received the revelation from Allah Azza wa Jal and the guidance, and you shouldn't put yourself ahead of him. So that was a lesson to all the Sahaba, apart from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who accepted the Hudaybiyah treaty straight away, and Salama radiallahu anha. The rest of the Sahaba were not in favor of the Hudaybiyah treaty, and Umar ibn Khattab was afraid that he could be criticized by Allah Azza wa Jal for putting his opinion ahead of the opinion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah Azza wa Jal sent Surah Al-Fatah, Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. Because of the treaty, Allah has opened a great gate for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, winning and entering Mecca peacefully. So, لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله. And be mindful of Allah. Allah is all hearing and all knowing. Alim, Samia, and Alim. Alim, the ultimate Alim, the one who has all the knowledge. You can't say about Allah Azza wa Jal Allama because it has Ta'at Ta'nith. You can't call Allah Azza wa Jal with a Ta'at Ta'nith. Although some people think Allama is more than Alim, which is not. Allah Al-Alim with the Al-Ta'rif, the ultimate Alim. And Allah is Al-Sami'. Al-Sami' al-Basir al-Alim. So with the Al-Ta'rif means the ultimate one. And also here I listen to all the people who have leaders and managers and guidance and teachers, and this is the way life is. You submit to the guide, to the Amir, to the leader, to the teacher. I consulted my teacher before I came to Britain to specialize, and he gave me the permissions. Okay, off you go. I consulted my teacher to stay in Britain, phoned him, and I said, this is what I'm doing in Britain. Would you agree for me to stay, or shall I go back home to Damascus? And he said, no, you stay there in Britain. Alhamdulillah, has been life has been very, very fruitful with me and my children, my family, and da'wah to Allah Azza wa Jal, to the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. So Suratul Hujuraat is to the Sahaba at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to all of us after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam joined Allah Azza wa Jal, went to the next life, and followed by companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-Khulafa al-Rashidin, and the Tabi'in, and Tabi'ihim wa mu'ayyidihim ila yawm al-din, all those who follow them till the day of judgment. And I did say in Ramadan, in the last session in Ramadan, that you need really to get your knowledge about Allah Azza wa Jalla, about His Prophet, about your faith, about your core belief, about Aqidah, from somebody who also heard it from a teacher with a link to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There should be a chain of spiritual belief, go from heart to heart to heart. نزل به روح الأمين على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين بلسان عربي مبين. The Quran came to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, and from his heart to the hearts of the Sahaba, from the hearts of the Sahaba to the Tabi'in, and so on and so forth until now. Many people probably never met somebody who is linked to the Prophet ﷺ in such a chain, and they might have without knowing. But they need to take from that person as he is linked to the Prophet ﷺ, and his knowledge is reliable and authentic and in keeping with the teaching in the Quran and Sunnah. Because you have to have a living Quran and you have to have a written Quran, both. The Prophet ﷺ was described by Aisha, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. His manner, his behavior, his conduct was exactly according to the Quran, like if it's a Quran walking. So this is why it is important you get such a teaching from such a person who have the link. So you could take the spiritual link coming down from the Prophet ﷺ, from Allah to Jibreel to the Prophet, to all the chain until it reaches you, and the Quran coming with the Sunnah and the Hadith on the other side, and they go hand by hand. They all complement each other. You add to it science and knowledge and discoveries, and they're all from Allah Azza wa Jal, the Creator. No discrepancy between any of these. There shouldn't be any discrepancy between the science and the Quran and the Hadith and the spiritual education coming from a qualified teacher, spiritually qualified teacher, spiritually linked teacher. The way you see Allah Azza wa Jal is not an easy thing unless somebody come and put it easy for you and make it simple for you. Many people actually who believed, converted to Islam, alhamdulillah, through me and my wife. We had more than 60 people now, more than 70 people, putting Islam in a spiritual, simple way to people. They straight away believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, even without inviting them to believe. I remember one of my charge nurses, I kept talking to him for 6 months without inviting him to Islam, without saying anything about converting or anything, just talking about Allah Azza wa Jal. And then after 6 months, I said to him, well, how do you think about Jesus? He said, since I met you, I never felt that he is God or Son of God. So he believed in Allah Azza wa Jal indirectly, through the talking about Allah Azza wa Jal, but he found that it's easy, straightforward, it's simple. And the same we had, brother in Solihull also. 3 months, 6 months, he found himself a believer in Allah Azza wa Jal. And then the next thing Allah Azza wa Jal included, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي. A manner. There's a manner of education, manner of talking to people in high positions, in teaching positions, because unless you give respect to the person who is heading a function, you spoil things. You need to give respect, and a special respect to a doctor. So he could convince patients to take drugs. He could convince patients to have the operation. He could convince patients to protect themselves from diseases, coronavirus, and similar. Unless you give the judge a special status, you're not going to make any impact in the court. You can't even control the court. When you go to court, you're not allowed to speak unless you are requested. You're not allowed even to come in unless invited, and there's certain procedures you go in. And I've been to many courts when I was an expert witness, and a coroner or the judge have a special status. He will not be addressed like anybody else. You worship, they say to him. Give it as if he is God, you're worshipping him. But you can't even talk in the court. You cannot actually, unless you're given permission, and you should be in a position to be allowed to speak also. You can't just listening to the case, you raise your hand, you can't. And you only speak when you are called. So you have to give the teachers respect, the head teacher, the chief executive officer in a company. Otherwise, people will not listen to the directions. So this is what Allah has directing Muslims from very early in life, 1400 years ago. They were disciplined how to run their affair, how to address people in positions, people in education level, people in, and the highest, obviously, passing messages from Allah Azza wa Jal to you. So especially if he is directly directed by Allah Azza wa Jal. So it's not a joke. And لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول. And do not speak loudly as you speak to each other. Otherwise, all your deeds will go, will disappear, while you're not noticing. This is obviously comes down to your boss, come down to your mom and dad, come down to your elders, people in positions, people who have other years accumulated, 60, 70 years. You can't talk to him like talking to 5 years old, a child. And you risk losing the reward of your deeds. Um, and there is a lot of stories about what happened in that. Like if you go to Tafsir Tabari, you talk about how we'll get to this. Yeah. That obviously is saying here about لا تقدموا بين يدي الله, until the Prophet ﷺ tell you what you need to know. And they are saying also, if he listened to you, will come later, لعنتهم. If he listened to you while you don't have really any highly researched and investigated information to come and put yourself forward, like we will now talk about curing the virus. You hear all sorts of silly, idiot suggestions, like, you know, if you drink hot water, you kill the virus. If you use earth, you kill the virus. If the temperature is too hot, you kill the virus. And people keep getting more viruses. We are misled. We take vitamin this and vitamin that and citrus this and citrus that. There are all sorts of people putting their suggestion forward, and they have no idea how research is done and how facts is uncovered and how scientists reach conclusions. And obviously people laugh at you. And ولا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تحبط أعمالكم وأنتم لا تشعرون. And this is so I went to the page before that. I should go to the page after. Yeah, this is the page I'm after. And they said they were even some of the top Sahaba were talking loudly in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and they were really terrified that they might lose all their deeds. And this is لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول بينكم كدعاء بعضكم بعضا. Don't call the Prophet ﷺ like calling each other. And he talked about a Sahabi called Thabit ibn Qais, who thought that he was meant by the ayah, so he kept crying all the way. And he passed somebody called Asim ibn Adi ibn al-Ajlani. Asked him, why are you crying? He said, because the ayah could have become criticizing me for raising my voice in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. And they went and asked the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said to him that no, Allah didn't mean you, and wouldn't you happy that you will be you will live a praised life, and you will die as a martyr, and you will enter Jannah. And then Thabit became calm and accepted, and he was quite happy with the good news from the Prophet ﷺ that he will be entering Jannah, and he made the pledge that he will never raise his voice before the Prophet ﷺ or in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah sent the ayah, أن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم. And those who lower their voices in the presence of the Prophet, أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم. So those who have lowered their voices in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, their heart has been tested for piety by Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah Azza wa Jal will forgive them. I've got people watching here on Facebook and YouTube, but I haven't seen any questions, so we'll carry on, inshallah. So, so it's a test for you, for us. Our behavior before our teachers and elders and bosses, and it's a lesson for, it's a test for us. You pass the test, get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. In this life, you get loved in your place of work. You get loved by your colleagues and your bosses and your. I remember when staff nurse, and when I was working in North Wales, he said to me, he said, when you swear, what do you say? What things you say? I said, well, have you heard me swearing? That's after 8 years of working there. He said, no, this is what I'm asking. I said, I don't swear. I don't swear. I don't need to swear. So he never heard me swearing. So he was surprised. When you're angry, when you're, I'm unhappy and things, what do you say? I mean, we know what people say. We don't have to copy them. So you pass the test. So when I left North Wales, they made a major party, farewell party for me, and the department gave me a big present, but every single unit insisted on giving me their own separate present and their own separate cards and thank you and things. They all donated for the main party, but each unit separately wanted to recognize that, I've been working there and I've been loved by them. SubhanAllah, alhamdulillah. So it's fruitful for you in this life now, in the 21st century. You don't have to go 1400 years ago. But the teaching of Allah Azza wa Jal and His Prophet and His Sahaba and Tabi'in and Tabi'in and the teacher until it reached you, gets you success. And it will train you. And you will be more polite with everybody. Small, young, enemy, friend, loved one. Like somebody asked Imam Abu Hanifa, whom shall I marry my daughter to? He said, married her to somebody who will fear Allah Azza wa Jal. Because if he loved her, he would be too generous with her. If he hates her, he will not be unjust with her. He will still be fair with her. So, because he's afraid of Allah Azza wa Jal. So like the story of Abdullah al-Qurashi, who was so much abused by his wife and bullied to the stage that he carries her to dust the house. And then he had enough and he wanted to leave the house, and he left, and on his way to his family's house, he faced a big storm, and he went to a cave to get shelter, and there were 2 people there. And when the time for the food, one of them made dua. So Allah gave them some food, and they had knock on the door, and there were a table outside with food on it. They ate. The second day, the second guy made the dua, and there were a tray of food outside. The third day, they said to Abdullah Qurashi, you have to make the dua. I said, I can't. You are people worshipping Allah all the time. I'm just somebody who's so bad and run away from home. I can't just make dua. You won't get anything. So better you make dua. They said, no, either you make dua or you're out in the rain. And he raised his hand and he made dua, and they were knock on the door. There were 2 trays of food. And they said, oh, there's no way we're going to eat the food until you tell us what's the secret of your dua. Your dua must have been so powerful that Allah Azza wa Jalla sent 2 trays of food. So he said, no, I'm not going to tell you. He said, oh, no, either you tell us or you're out again. We don't want to know. We want to know that secret, why we are short in getting answers than you. He said, I didn't actually make any dua. I said, oh Allah Azza wa Jal, for whatever dua these 2 people make, give us food today and, cover for me because I will be exposed otherwise. So what's your dua? Which I use. They said, oh, we always ask Allah Azza wa Jal, if you love Abu Abdullah al-Qurashi in this town, give us some food. So he said, okay, thank you very much. And he left, went back to his wife, he said, you know, my patience with my wife is actually earned me that. So you need, no matter how much your family bad to you, so what? You're not going to have any bad family as bad as the family of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, his brothers, who tried to kill him, put him in the desert, eventually threw him in the well. And he went as a slave in somebody's house, and then went to prison, and then he suffered a lot. And when he was in charge of the treasury in Egypt, and he has the power within his grasp, and when his brothers came back, he said, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm." Go, don't worry. He said, Shaitan divided between us, you and me. He didn't say, you evil one, you tried to kill me, I will show you. No, no. Even the king, when they put him in prison, when the king wanted the meaning of the dream, he gave him the meaning. He didn't say, oh, I will not give you the meaning until I get out of prison, or I will not give you the meaning unless you give me so and so. I will not give you the meaning until you kill Zaliha, or kill this or that. And I'll not give you the meaning. Tough. I suffered 15 years. You suffer as well. He didn't. He just told them the meaning of the dream. This is why he is Al Karim ibn Al Karim ibn Al Karim ibn Al Karim. Has 4 titles next to his name. That 4 times generous than the rest of us. So, teaching from Allah Azza wa Jalla. إن الذين ينادونك من وراء الحجرات أكثرهم لا يعقلون. The Prophet ﷺ used to have the rooms of his wives is around them. If you go to the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ will be on the left side of the mosque. The Qibla there, and the left side of the mosque, the rooms of his wife. So they came and they didn't know which room he was in, so they started shouting from outside, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad. So that's not a way you go. If you go to, try to go and shout Queen Elizabeth from outside Buckingham Palace, you get arrested. Try to go Downing Street and shout, get arrested. You go and try to shout in one of the Middle East countries, you get shot down, shot dead. And there's a guy who was telling us about, was walking by the palace, one of the residents, and he's deaf. And he said the guy who was guarding around the palace, he said to him, he swear at me. He complained. He said, how did you hear him swearing at you while you're deaf? He said, because he smacked my face. So way to address people. And even if you come suddenly to a family and you're not aware that you're coming, you have to, if there's no phone, no mobile, no other messages, you have to knock on the door and wait. And I came suddenly to, no phone, nothing. I came to my family in Syria, and I asked the driver to knock on the door and say that your son is in the car, is coming to, just arrived. Instead of opening the door and seeing you facing them straight away, they get terrified, shocked, collapse, especially if you have been away for a long time. So وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ صَبَرُوا, if they were patient till you come out to them, but how we would have been better for them. لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. So Allah is teaching the Sahaba how to behave. The life of the Prophet ﷺ, 23 years, wasn't passing the message from Allah to them. He was also training them to receive the message, training them to interact correctly with the message, training them to change their horrible behavior, whether it's health-wise, whether it's food-wise, whether it's conduct, whether it's behavior, social interaction, work, selling, buying. The job of the Prophet ﷺ was enormous. How to run a war, how to run a country, how to run a message, how to run a family. No one of us have as large family as Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Have 9 wives at any time, were his wives. And one of us find it difficult to satisfy one wife, to provide her with her needs. What the Prophet ﷺ did, 9 wives. Obviously, Allah gave him the ability and he deserved it. And he said to Aisha, if you are with Allah Azza wa Jal as I am with Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will give you as He gives me. Allah doesn't say that A has special preference because he's my relative. Nobody related to Allah Azza wa Jal. He's the one who has no family, no children. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. So he doesn't have any discrimination. You will be closer to Allah Azza wa Jal the more you obey Allah Azza wa Jal, the more you respect Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet ﷺ, coming down from Taif, bleeding, bore out, thrown with stones and things. He said, Allahumma ahdi qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Allah Azza wa Jal, guide my people because they don't know what they're missing. While Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا. Allah don't leave anyone on earth from the kafirin. Kill all of them, drown all of them. Musa, the same. When he made the dua against Pharaoh, لا يؤمنوا حتى يروا العذاب الأليم, that he doesn't even want them to believe. He wants them to go to hell and see the punishment and then believe. While Muhammad ﷺ said, عسى أن يخرج الله من أصلابهم من يوحد الله. He's hoping that Allah will bring from their children those who will unify Allah and accept La ilaha illallah. So this is why he has single treatment from Allah Azza wa Jal. He was living on earth as if he is living in paradise. 9 wives, he will have 70 in 80 in Jannah, even more. But he won't have a power in this life for more than 4 maximum. And that the 4 is actually those who marry 2 wives are 2% in the Middle East. Those who marry 3 wives are 0.5%, and those who marry 4 wives are 0.01%, 1 per 10,000. You don't find people marrying 2 or 3 wives. Can't cause. It's too difficult and too demanding. And obviously, if you can't treat 1 wife correctly, how are you going to treat 2? Double the whammy. Like if you have 2 bosses or 3 bosses, everybody ordering you something, and sometimes it will be the same order from 2 or 3 different places. So if you were patient, it would have been better for them. حتى تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ. The surah itself, Surah Hujuraat, is the surah of the manner surah, how we should behave as individuals, as groups, as nation, as learners, students, as followers, and these sort of things in the surah. And now here the Prophet ﷺ sent Al-Walid ibn Uqba to Bani al-Mustatlaq to collect the zakah. So he, in the Jahiliyyah time, before he was Muslim, there were a revenge against him because he killed somebody. And when he arrived, Bani al-Mustatlaq were so pleased to see one of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ coming to them, and they came, all of them, out to welcome him, and he became terrified. He thought they're after him to kill him because they want to take revenge from his previous sin. So he ran away and came back to the Prophet ﷺ, and he told him that Bani al-Mustatlaq, they left Islam, they refused to pay zakah, and they are preparing to come and fight you. Obviously, the Prophet ﷺ, this is the only source of information, Al-Walid ibn Uqba. So he sent Khalid ibn Walid with a group of Sahaba to find out what's going on, and they were instructed to find out before they attack, if there is a need for attack. And they heard the adhan, and they heard the takbir, and they heard and so the people were not. They were so happy to welcome a Sahabi, and he went terrified, and he created that lie, which Allah Azza wa Jal called him fasiq for that. Obviously, he repented, and he, went and learned the lesson. فَتَبَيَّنُوا. If a fasiq come to you, fasiq is the one who split from the religion. he commits certain things which make him incompatible with the religion. Either he's a big liar or a big cheater, or he's drinking alcohol, or he's that fisq in the manner, in the characters, in the behavior. Fisq in leaving the religion itself altogether. Fasiq, he will go obviously to hellfire. He's no longer a Muslim. And if a fasiq come to you with any news, you have to find out before you make any decisions how to respond. فَتَبَيَّنُوا أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ. You might hit people unwittingly, with ignorance. You don't know what's the truth, and then you regret what you have done. Because if that's what they've done, they went and fought Bani al-Mustatlaq, who were Muslims, they will feel bitter about killing Muslims like them. And they will have no right to take their money. They have no right to kill them. They are Muslims. They never committed an act to justify a fight. So Allah wants us to find out. There's a lot now with the social media. There's a lot of lie, a lot of wrong news, a lot of confabulated news, a lot of wrong news. And people now able to make modifications and editing to videos and films, and even they can collect speeches from people well known and stick it together to mean something completely different. And I've done it when I had the computer 30 years ago with my children, like a joke and a game, and just take a single word and move it from place to place. And now you take it with the lips moving, and you synchronize things in a way that you will never know. There were a program on television here how they can modify and change and edit videos that you will never know whether the person said it or not. So the best way, phone the person, go and find out. I go and check nearly every time I get a video which is suspicious. And I think most of it's suspicious, to tell you the truth, because so much lying, so much misinformation, so much information created deliberately to misguide people in the third world, especially now about coronavirus. So much misinformation, so much destructive behavior. I think it's like to say to people, we will lock down the city tomorrow, so everybody goes today to buy food, and they give each other the virus if they the one who doesn't have it. Like when they said this lockdown in Britain, and I went to Tesco, and I found people crowding like if there is sale, if like Boxing Day or something. So I just left. I came back. I couldn't even be in a queue so close to each other. Now there is 2 meters gap. واعلموا أن فيكم رسول الله لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم. It's among you is the messenger of Allah. It's not any other person. It's not any ordinary person. He's the messenger of Allah. If he pays you with a lot of these affairs, you will have gone through disaster. Because imagine if he agreed with you to go by force and enter Mecca at the time of the Hudaybiyah, and there were a lot of Muslims in hiding in Mecca. If he accepted the claim of Al-Walid ibn Uqba and went and fought against Bani al-Mustatlaq, and they were Muslims, they were so happy to see a Sahabi coming to collect the zakah. If he agreed with Umar ibn Khattab to ban alcohol early in the message of Islam, and people just will go through detox. They just can't stand sudden withdrawal of alcohol. Allah will withdraw the alcohol slowly, gradually, making, saying that is doesn't benefit, a lot of harm, and there is don't come near the prey while you're being under the influence of alcohol, and that it's the amal, and then he banned it totally after people started going off alcohol slowly and gradually. But Allah Azza wa Jal, alhamdulillah, He made you love Iman, حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ. So you agree to listen to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not easy for somebody to come and say to you, I'm a messenger from Allah Azza wa Jal. Alhamdulillah, there's no more prophets after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because you don't know when somebody comes to you and say, I'm a messenger of God, how would you interact? But we have in the Quran that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the seal of the prophethood, and he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, La nabiyya ba'di, is no prophet after me. And we have the Quran, which is preserved by Allah Azza wa Jal, and no one would have preserved it but Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah Azza wa Jal make us love Iman and beautified it in our hearts. And we hated kufr. Allah made us hate kufr. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الرَّاشِدُونَ. Those who follow that and submit to the Prophet ﷺ and obey him and never question what he does, they are the most guided people and the most righteous people. Rashid, from Rashidun, mature. They are really mature and they know what's good for them, what's bad for them. فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. So as a messenger of Allah, all what he says is going to be correct. Allah will guide him. And Allah said, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. You just take it. This is why the Sahaba were so careful not to reject the hadith, and so did the Tabi'in, Tabi'in. This is why they have included even the confabulated hadith, to say that this, we investigated this, it is confabulated. It's amazing, the hadith da'if, the whole chain of the people narrating the hadith would have been good people, except one has poor memory, the hadith da'if. You can't use it for changing the rules and putting the law. So they were so keen not to get anything wrong right. So it has to be purely correct from top to bottom till this documented and transmitted automatically by, verbally and in writing. So the Sahaba were very keen to neglect the hadith al-da'if because they could be correct. The hadith which is contradict another hadith. Like there's two hadith, one of them say that Day of Judgment will not take place until the sun rises from the west. And there's another hadith, the sun will rise till it reaches the middle of the sky and then goes back where it came from. The two hadiths seems contradicting each other. Because how is it that the sun will rise from the west? Alhamdulillah that they did not rubbish one of the hadiths. They kept both hadiths. Because now, if the Day of Judgment takes place in the west, while we are during the night, the sun will rise from the west. But in the meantime, would have been in the middle of the sky in Australia and goes back to the east. This is what will happen the Day of Judgment. For some people, the sun will be in the middle of the sky and goes back to the east, and for us will come back from the west where it's at. So it means that the earth will turn the other way around. So the two hadiths complement each other. And subhanallah, I mean, that's why وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. He tells you the information which at that time it was like Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, the one who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet read Suratul Fussilat to him. And when he went back, he said, I didn't understand most of what he said. The Prophet ﷺ was talking about the creation of the universe, the creation of the earth, and the stages was created, and how many days Allah created the earth, how many days created the vegetation, how many days He created the animals and things, and how He created the heavens, and it was in a spoke like, and that beyond his comprehension. But he couldn't say it's wrong, but he didn't understand it. But obviously, the Prophet didn't explain it to him in that details because it will be beyond their grasp, scientific ability to grasp what he's talking about. ترى الجبال تحسبها جامدة وهي تمر مر السحاب. You see the mountains, you think they are fixed, while they are moving like the movement of the cloud. Sunnah Allah. So because the earth moving, and he didn't explain to them that they are moving because they are part of the earth and the earth is moving. They wouldn't agree with him. But you have to accept what he said. This is why وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. What he says, it's revelation from Allah Azza wa Jal. and he can't obey you in most of the matters, because he will ask you if there is something you could offer, especially things concerning this life, how to grow cucumber, how to grow banana, how to do this. Yeah, but you can't ask him about things which has a lot to do with your origin, destination, behavior, deep knowledge and things. And that's fadlun min Allah wa ni'mah. That's a grace from and favor from Allah Azza wa Jal, and a gift from Allah Azza wa Jal, and the ni'mah. Wallahu alimun hakim. Again, Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom. So Alim obviously have all the knowledge about the past, the present, and the future, and he is the most wise. He knows what to do, the time, the place, to who, when, and how. We don't know. I mean, sometimes we'd say the wrong things to the wrong person. We could make the wrong decision about things which is totally against our best interest. We have to, when we look into the Quran and the Hadith, it's from the most wise, Allah Azza wa Jal, so nothing in it but for our best interest. This is why obeying Allah Azza wa Jal relieves us from the problem with calculating risks and things. Oh, is this risky for me? This is risky. So if Allah says do it, do it. He takes the responsibility, and He will back you up if you do it His way. So don't worry. Allah will find you alternative things, will find you replacement, will find you way out. عسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم، عسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم. You might love something, Allah said, which could be bad for you. You might hate something which is good for you. So especially when it comes to a relationship between husband and wife, and father and children, and neighbors, and son and his Baba and mom and dad, and then Allah addresses a new subject, which is وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. SubhanAllah, obviously, if Allah didn't say this verse in Suratul Hujuraat, people would have easily claimed that Muawiyah is not a Muslim, or Ali is not a Muslim, or both are not Muslims. So Allah acknowledging here, yes, mu'mineen, believers, could fight each other, could fight. Things could go terribly wrong. And the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he was in his camp, and Muawiyah in his camp, and they both went there. Muawiyah went to catch the 6,000 people who came, invaded Medina, and they want to take them to court and punish them for killing his uncle, Uthman ibn Affan. Ali ibn Abi Talib disagreed with that, said you have to apply to the court, and the Khalifa will investigate and find these people, bring them to court. And the third group, Aisha and Talha ibn Ubaydillah and Zubair ibn Awam, they came to intermediate between them, stop them fighting each other. During the night, the 6,000 formed like a squad who came and started fighting both sides, giving the impression that the other side is attacking them. The Muawiyah group thought Ali attacking, and the Ali group thought Muawiyah attacking, and the war started. So this is, beyond their ability to control it. They were forced to fight back, and many Muslims killed. But Allah said, yes, that could happen. People could fight each other, but the rest of the Muslims have to bring them to peace. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. We cannot see Muslims fighting each other and we sit doing nothing. But what's happening now? There's Muslims fighting each other in Yemen, or in Libya, or in Syria, or in Afghanistan, or anywhere in the world. And Muslims side, one group side with this one, and one group side with the other one, and they still more fight. And the fight never ends. 10 years in continuous fight between, now in Syria there's fight for 10 years, in Yemen there's 5 years fight, or 4 years, in between Iraq and Iran. They were fighting for 10 years. The fight is still in Afghanistan. I don't know when it started. Started donkeys of years ago. 2001, they invaded Afghanistan, and the Afghanistani were killing each other ever since, Taliban and things, and the government, and they're still fighting each other in Pakistan. Explode mosques of people because they are Sunni or Shia or Sufi or Salafi. That's against the ayah. The rest of the believers must bring them to peace. If one refuses to come to peace, فَإِنْ بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى, all of them should fight the group who refused the peace. So who refused the peace in Libya? Who wouldn't put the arms and stop the fight? All those who refused the peace, all the Muslims should fight them to force them to accept peace. Can't carry on fighting, disturbing, destroying homes, destroying families, orphaning children, making so many women widows, and depriving them from education, from schools. SubhanAllah, many Syrian children never had schooling for 10 years. And the rest of the Muslims didn't care. So Allah banned schools for all the Muslims and non-Muslims. No schools across the globe, except few countries, But many schools now have been closed for the last 2 months. Okay, you don't care about the poor children in Syria? I'll make all your children sit at home, have no education, trace of education. Parents struggling to get their children educated. It's not the environment, it's not the place. So many destruction in the house, distracting things, and basically your children, they will not listen to you as a teacher. I try to teach my grandchildren over the internet, and I can't see their faces going right, left, and center. And they don't concentrate. They don't sit still. They keep fidgeting in the place, and they keep coming close to the camera. I'm far away from the camera. I can't hear them. So فَقَاتِلُوا الَّتِي تَبْغِي حَتَّى تَفِيءَ إِلَى أَمْرِ اللَّهِ, until it responded to the orders of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the command of Allah, and respect each other. فَإِنْ فَاءَتْ, if this group accepts it and woke up and complies, then bring them into peace. Sort out the differences between them. Who lost what? Who has to make concession? Who has to accept the concession? But you have always to be just and fair. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا بِالْعَدْلِ وَأَقْسِطُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُقْسِطِينَ. Allah Azza Jal loves fair people and just people. So this is a surah which is, as I said, for individuals, for families, for friends, for groups of people, for the whole of the country, and between countries. So the surah goes on, and the last verse I'm going to talk about today, this beautiful verse, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. You know you are mu'min if the other mu'min is you consider him or her your brother and your sister. If you see the other believer and you don't take him as equal to you, question your belief. Because this is a statement by Allah Azza wa Jal. Verily, the believers are brothers to each other. A single brotherhood. Ukhwa, brothers. They are brothers, obviously, and sisters. The believers automatically brothers of each other. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. You don't want your brothers to be fighting each other. They're you brothers. So the problem is that now Muslims easily label each other as being fasiq or kafir, and will come in the ayah later. وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. That's a problem, because that will take you into fasiq. You become fasiq. When you label somebody as kafir or fasiq, who could be فَقَدْ بَاءَ بِهَا أَحَدُهُمَا. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you accuse of your brother of being kafir, one of you is. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ, be mindful of Allah. Always fear Allah. Allah is able to punish you anytime. Like Allah not punishing all the globe now. I've been calculating how many things Allah has really putting right. How many things Allah wasn't happy with. Imagine all the Communist Party in China sitting in the assembly with the veil on their face. They don't like the veil on some Muslim faces, so Allah made all of them sit in their assembly with the veil on their face. It's quite annoying. I mean, I use the mask when I go to the supermarket, and it's really, especially with the hot weather, it's quite annoying to cover your face when you're not used to it. Obviously, Muslim women are not expected to cover their face unless it's this severe sandstorm, or there is a lot of smoke or something you want to protect yourself. But the wajh is not awra, the face is not awra. Otherwise, if the face is awra, women are instructed to do hajj without face cover or gloves. So are they exposing their awra in hajj? Nullifying the hajj? The woman making tawaf around Kaaba naked? Because they say showing the face is like the awra al-mughallaza, like the private parts, showing the face. Some people. Amazing. But this is, if you want to behave this way, don't say the other lady is fasiq or kafir. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. So subhanAllah, there's the mercy of Allah has really left us and gone, because subhanAllah, many of us has been really suffering from the virus and from the consequences of the lockdown, and many lost their jobs, many lost their businesses, and many are not going back to a job. The job is no longer there. Now the government here forcing the employer to pay 20% of the wage. So I'm sure many of them will sack the employees, but they don't have the money to pay them. So what do? You sack him. Subhanallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم اجعل اجتماعنا هذا اجتماعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما. May Allah bless our meeting and protect us after leaving each other. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. See you next week inshallah, 8 o'clock. We'll go through Suratul Hujuraat inshallah.